Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of AEW's Full Gear. Before we even start off tonight, there was an announcement that Fight for the Fallen will be the first show that will be simulcast on TBS and Max starting January 1st. So this is a big deal. I want you guys to remember that on January 1st, Fight for the Fallen will be the first event on HBO Max. Moving on to the main card, though, the first match of the night on the main card is for the AEW Tag Team Championships, a fatal four-way matchup. It is the Kings of the Black Throne taking on the Outrunners versus the Acclaimed versus Private Party. I thought it was a good match, back-and-forth matchup with all teams involved, with the Kings of the Black Throne keeping the pace of the match. Malachi hits a moonsault to the outside. Mark Quinn hits an enziguri. Private Party then hit 450s for a near fall. But Private Party ultimately hits a gin and juice, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match, and still AEW Tag Team Champions, are Private Party. Hats off to Private Party for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's MJF versus Roderick Strong. Before the match even gets started, MJF grabs a microphone. MJF mocks Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong goes out of the ring. He lays devastating chops on MJF. The match itself was a good match. Back and forth matchup between MJF and Strong, with MJF keeping the pace of the match. MJF hits a powerbomb off the apron on Strong. It looked absolutely brutal. Strong gets up, hits an angle slam on MJF for a near fall. MJF then hits a DDT for a near fall as well. Strong then applies a Texas Cloverleaf in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Strong then lands a heartache on MJF for a near fall. But MJF applies quickly a Salt of the Earth on Roderick Strong's injured hand. Strong taps out, and your winner of the match is MJF. After the match, MJF goes out of the ring, grabs a chair. MJF then puts Roderick Strong's arm in the chair, but all of a sudden Cole comes out to the ring to save Roderick Strong. O'Reilly comes out of the ring as well and pushes Adam Cole. It looks like there's some unfinished business there between O'Reilly and Cole. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night for the TBS title. It is Mercedes Moné defending the TBS title against Chris Statlander. I thought this was a great match, man. It's probably the best match we've seen for Mercedes Moné since she's been with AEW. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Moné and Stat, with Moné keeping the pace of the match. Stat then hits a power slam on Moné. Moné gets up, hits a Hurricane Rana off the apron to the outside on Chris. Moné then hits a Meteor off the apron as well. Chris then gets up, hits a power slam on Moné. Moné then hits a backstabber on Chris for a near fall. Moné then hits a Meteora for a near fall as well. Chris gets up, hits a Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Moné then pays homage to Eddie Guerrero by hitting the Three Amigos, as well as a Frog Splash for a near fall. But Moné hits a roll-up on Chris, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still TBS champion, is Mercedes Moné. Hats off to Mercedes Moné for getting the win in that matchup and defending the TBS title. Moving on from that, we go to our next match of the night. It's Adam Page taking on Jay White. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Page and Jay White, with Page keeping the pace of the match. Page hits a fallaway slam on Jay White. Page and Jay White both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Page hitting a power bomb on Jay White for a near fall. Page then hits 2 dead eyes for a near fall, but Jay gets up, hits his signature Blade Runner on Adam Page, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jay White. After the match, Page attacks Jay White. Page then hits Christopher Daniels as well, so it looks like Adam Page might have some fines coming his way for hitting Christopher Daniels. Moving on from that, we go into our next matchup, highly anticipated matchup between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. I thought this was a great match, man. Back and forth matchup between Ospreay and Fletcher, with Ospreay and Fletcher both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Ospreay hits a Hurricane Rana on Fletcher. Ospreay then hits another Hurricane Rana on Fletcher on the outside. Fletcher gets up, hits a devastating Brain Buster on Ospreay on the outside. Ospreay then hits a springboard forearm, taking out Fletcher. Fletcher gets up, hits a powerbomb on Ospreay for a near fall. Ospreay then hits a Stun Dog Millionaire, as well as a Tombstone Piledriver on the outside. Ospreay hits a Spanish Fly in the middle of the ring on Fletcher. Ospreay then hits a Styles Clash for a near fall as well. Ospreay then hits a Hidden Blade for a near fall, but Fletcher gets up, hits a Tombstone off the apron on Ospreay, landing onto the steel steps. It looked absolutely brutal. And then Fletcher hits another Brain Buster off the top rope, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Kyle Fletcher. After the match, Mark Davis comes out to the ring to help Will Ospreay. Moving on from that, we have a Mariah May Championship celebration. This is the championship celebration that she has won the title, beating Toni Storm a while back ago. And Mariah May finally decides to have her championship celebration. Mariah May comes out to the stage with Marina Shirakawa. May talks about the women's division. She wants to put the women's division on notice. And all of a sudden, Mina then goes to grab a champagne glass, and it looks like Mariah May was going to attack Mina Shirakawa. Instead, Mariah May, after she goes to hit Mina then hits a spear on Mariah May, sending both of them off the stage through a table on the outside. Looks like there's some story lining up here between Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa. Definitely looking forward to that possible matchup for possibly the AEW Women's Championship. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the TNT title. It is Daniel Garcia taking on Jack Perry. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Garcia and Perry, with Perry keeping the pace of the match. Perry hits a DDT on Garcia off the apron. Perry then hits a powerbomb through the timekeeper's table on Garcia. Perry goes back in the ring. Garcia is desperately trying to get back in the ring before a 10 count. He makes it in the ring. Garcia and Perry then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Perry grabbing the TNT title. Perry then hits a low blow on Garcia with the referee being distracted. Garcia then hits a pile driver on Perry for a near fall. And then Garcia applies a sharp shooter in the middle of the ring on Perry. Perry taps out, and your winner of the match and new TNT champion is Daniel Garcia. Hats off to Daniel Garcia for getting the win in that match and becoming the new TNT champion. Moving on from that, we have an international title matchup. It is Takeshita defending the international title against Ricochet. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Takeshita and Ricochet, with Takeshita keeping the pace of the match. Ricochet then hits an enziguri as well as a springboard 450 on Takeshita. Takeshita hits a blue thunder bomb for a near fall on Ricochet. Ricochet and Takeshita both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Takeshita hitting a running knee on Ricochet for a near fall. Ricochet then gets up, hits a hurricanrana off the top on Takeshita. Ricochet then hits a a shooting star press for a near fall, but Takeshita ultimately hits a Falcon Arrow off the top rope, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still international champion is Takeshita. Hats off to Takeshita for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Highly anticipated matchup. It is Swerve taking on Bobby Lashley. I thought it was a good match, quick match. Back and forth matchup between Swerve and Lashley, with Lashley keeping the pace of the match. Lashley hits a power slam on Swerve, as well as a choke slam off the apron. Swerve then hits a Swerve stomp through the announce table on Bobby Lashley. Swerve then hits a house call. Swerve then hits another Swerve stomp on Lashley for a near fall. Lashley then gets up, hits a spear through the barricade, taking out Swerve, and then Lashley applies a hurt lock on Swerve in the middle of the ring, and your winner of the match is Bobby Lashley. After the match, Lashley attacks Prince Nana. Looks like there might be some unfinished business here between Swerve and Bobby Lashley. Moving on from that, we go into the main event of AEW's Full Gear. It is Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Orange Cassidy. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Moxley and Cassidy, with Orange Cassidy hitting 3 orange punches on Moxley. But Moxley was trying to keep the pace of the match, with Moxley hitting a paradigm shift quickly off the steel steps on Orange Cassidy. Marina Shafir gets involved by attacking Orange Cassidy ringside. Orange then goes for an orange punch, but Moxley counters. Orange and Moxley both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Orange hitting another orange punch on Moxley, as well as a beach break for a near fall. Pac and Claudio come out to the ring. The conglomeration are here. They attack Pac and Claudio. Willow then comes out to the ring to attack Marina Shafir. Orange Cassidy then hits Moxley with the briefcase. Yuta then hits a running knee. Moxley then gets up, hits a Death Rider on Orange Cassidy, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match and still AEW World Champion is Jon Moxley. After the match, Yuta pours cleaning liquid on Orange Cassidy. Paige is here, as well as Christian Cage. Cage then hits a kill switch on Moxley in the middle of the ring. White then hits a Blade Runner on Cage. Pac and Claudio then attack Jay White. After that, the Death Riders leave the ring, try to leave the arena, and then all of a sudden someone pulls up and runs over their pickup truck. And the Death Riders are frantic. They look for more keys. They grab another set of keys for another vehicle, and they finally leave the arena. And the person that hit them with that vehicle was none other than Darby Allin. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, with Full Gear. And there's a lot to discuss, so again, stay tuned. Number one, to me, honestly, I'm not going to be one of those people that says that, I believe Full Gear was one of the worst pay-per-views in the calendar year for AEW. No. But I'll say this. The AEW's Full Gear this year was probably the most confusing pay-per-view in AEW's existence. There was a lot of shit going on in the main event throughout the night. The lack of storyline, lack of build, obviously also hurt this event very badly. There's just a lot to dissect about this, man. So let's start number one. We have the kickoff show, the buy-in. The main reason for the buy-in was to bring in the Costco guy and stuff like that, and the fans loved him, and he was a huge draw in that matchup when he took on QT Marshall. So a lot of fans were gravitated towards 0 Hour. The main card, though, the main reason why we're here, what I mainly covered was the main card. Number one, let's talk about the announcement. Everybody was, myself included, it was a small announcement, but everybody was contemplating what was going to be AEW's first show or televised show on Max. We finally got insight on that at Full Gear, where, like I told you guys earlier, that the first event for Max for AEW will be none other than Fight for the Fallen. That will take place, I believe, January 1st, 2025. So that will be simulcast with TBS and Max. And obviously, Fight for the Fallen is a Dynamite special that they are presenting to the fans January 1st. So if you guys want to watch it on Max, you have the availability to watch it on Max if you have Max. If not, you can watch it on TBS as well. It will be simulcast for both TBS and HBO Max. So that's a big deal for AEW. And hopefully it's a tall tale task, or not a tall tale task, but hopefully it's signs to come that obviously next year, 2025, AEW pay-per-views or PLEs will also be a part of the HBO Max family. So I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. But Full Gear, man, Full Gear there's a lot of shit going on in Full Gear. And like I said earlier, the lack of build, the lack of storyline leading up to these matches really did take away a lot from this card, from a fan standpoint. But with that being said, it was a decent crowd, man. I think they sold like 11,000 seats for this, or close to 11,000 seats for this pay-per-view. So it wasn't a bad pay-per-view buy as far as fans being in attendance and people buying it on television, myself included, also bought this event. So it looks like in that aspect, it didn't do that bad. But the build-up and storyline leading up to these matches were just not there. I think it took a lot away from the hype, if you will, for Full Gear. It really wasn't that much of an exciting... There wasn't a lot of excitement around the event for this year's Full Gear, which is crazy because, in my honest opinion, Full Gear is a part of AEW's top 4 pay-per-views in the calendar year. It's one of the original pay-per-views, so it just didn't really have a lot of hype, a lot of build with this year's Full Gear, in my honest opinion. But with that being said, did the matches disappoint? No. But I will say this. Match placement is a big deal for pay-per-views. I mean, AEW... The biggest thing with AEW is obviously AEW is known for their pay-per-views. Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-Per-View, and a lot of people have said that, myself included. Tony Khan puts on fantastic pay-per-views for the fans of AEW and fans of professional wrestling. No doubt about it. But with that being said, match placement is a humongous deal. I feel like, besides Mercedes Moné and Chris Statlander, which, by the way, that was, in my honest opinion, Moné's best match she's had since she's been with AEW, hands down. That's better than Stephanie Vaquer match. It's better than the Willow match. That was Mercedes Moné's best match and probably coming out party match for Mercedes Moné. That was a statement maker matchup for Moné, and it was a great job from both Stat and Moné. Those girls tore the house down at Full Gear, and I heard through the grapevine they got a lot of praise backstage from other talent, and rightfully so. They put on a banger match. It was a great match between Moné and Statlander, and I look forward to who's going to be the next person that's going to challenge Mercedes Moné for that TBS title. Will it be Jamie Hayter? Will it be Julia Hart? That is also, speculated to come back. Looks like Julia Hart has her sights set on Jamie Hayter. Maybe there's like a number one contender matchup there between Julia and Jamie Hayter to be the new number one contender for the TBS title. But Moné and Statlander, man, they tore the house down. It was a great matchup from top to bottom on that matchup. But like I said, matchment placement is a big deal. I feel like besides the Moné and Statlander match, which was great, we didn't get probably the best matches of this card until like the last hour and a half of Full Gear, to be honest with you. And, not only that, they were going really fast with the matches. It was literally one after another. So there really wasn't time for fans to really sink their teeth into after what they just watched because, 10 seconds later, we're going to start the new match. I also believe that, AEW really doesn't need to have 10 to 12 matches per pay-per-view. I mean, you can consolidate that to 7 matches tops, the top matches of the night, and call it a day. And that's one thing that WWE is great at. They give 5 to 6 matches on a PLE, and that's all they need, man, because each one of those matches are high-profile matches. That's all you need. We don't need 10 to 12 matches for pay-per-views. It's just absolutely insane. And I felt like Full Gear, for me as a fan, it just went on it felt like it went on forever and ever and ever and ever. And it was just like, Even though I'm a fan, I'm like, when the hell is this shit going to end? Because I feel like it was just constant, and it was just match after match after match after match after match, and it was crazy. Like I said, man, AEW does not need to have 10 to 12 matches per pay-per-view. That's insane. Consolidate it, have 7 matches top, and that's it. Or 6 matches, and call it a day. The most important matches should be obviously a part of the pay-per-views. That's all we need. With that being said, though, I mean, was it a terrible card? No. I mean, the main event between Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley is something also that I want to talk about and go into detail on how I feel about it. I mean, number one, did I think Orange Cassidy was going to beat Jon Moxley? Hell to the no. No, I did not see Orange Cassidy being that guy to beat Jon Moxley and, I guess, save or be the savior of AEW. I didn't. To me, is Orange Cassidy an original AEW guy? Yeah, he is. But it gets to a point where I feel like the company puts a lot of faith in Orange Cassidy, but I guess also not, considering the fact that he's yet to hold the AEW World Championship, in my honest opinion. Secondly, what does this do for Orange Cassidy? It looks like Orange Cassidy's going to go to the back of the line again after the matchup that he had with Jon Moxley, which was not a bad match. It really wasn't. I mean, don't get me wrong, Orange Cassidy, he got his ass kicked. I mean, he definitely did. Moxley beat the shit out of Orange Cassidy. But it goes to tell you, what's next for Moxley and what's next for Orange Cassidy. And then after the match, you see Adam Page come out, and my first reaction was, holy shit, Adam Page is going to come in and try to be the savior of AEW. He's going to be the next challenger to Jon Moxley. Even though he literally just lost a match clean against Jay White in the same night. But we see Adam Page come out. He has a stare down with Jon Moxley. Christian Cage comes out as well. He attacks Jon Moxley. Looks like he was going to cash in his contract. And then Jay White comes out of nowhere, attacks Christian Cage. So there's a lot of angles in that. And then when they, the Death Riders leave, all of a sudden, some car comes out of nowhere, spray paint all over the place, pretty much totals the Dodge pickup that the Death Rider has been driving in for the past couple weeks to show up at the arena. That car is destroyed, and the person that destroys that car who gets out is none other than Darby Allin. Now, I don't know how Darby's going to fit into the void of this storyline, man, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of Darby. I think Darby's great. I think Darby is going to be a lifer for AEW. I don't see the guy going anywhere anytime soon. And he's already said that he wants to stay with AEW for the rest of his career. So that's a plus, number one. But I don't know how Darby fits into this, considering the fact that the Death Riders have already beat the shit out of Darby. I mean, I think it was a couple weeks ago, not last week, but the week before that, I think Claudio pretty much beat the shit out of Darby backstage, threw him up against one of the gates backstage or by the production truck. And then we have a matchup between Darby and Claudio where Claudio beat the hell out of Darby. So in the aspect of, okay, this is an NWO angle, well, you're not really making Darby look like Sting, where he's coming out getting his ass kicked. And now Darby, oh, you know what, let's finish this shit here. We have unfinished business. No offense, Darby. I mean, I feel like they already beat the hell out of you. There's nothing more, for Darby to do. Now, do I think Darby should be that guy that carries the AEW banner and carries the AEW World Championship? Absolutely. But I've also said that same shit about Darby when it pertained to Wrestle Dream. And I preached that until I was blue in the face, where it should have been Darby versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship, and Bryan passed the torch to Darby. It was both in these guys' home state. You got Bryan Danielson from the great state of Washington, as well as Darby Allin. And what better way for Darby to become the first ever, his first time winning the belt in his home state against someone like Bryan Danielson? I think the story writes itself, but we didn't get that. The Jon Moxley storyline, though, has it run flat? Yeah. I don't really know what else Jon Moxley and the Death Riders can really do at this point to really keep fans intrigued on really what the hell's going on here, because I feel like it's getting to a point where it's rinse and repeat. Now, I have mentioned now for the past couple weeks that there are still some wild cards in this. Obviously, the Young Bucks. We have not seen the Young Bucks since they lost their belts to Private Party. They leave the arena, tell Marvez that, hey, we're working from home, and telling Christopher Daniels, hey, we're working from home. But they leave somebody behind, and that's Brandon Cutler. Brandon Cutler, got attacked by, the Death Riders. So is the Young Bucks going to come back and seek revenge for the attack of what Moxley did to their friend Brandon Cutler? Well, I don't know. The only person that we've seen from the Elite as of late is Jack Perry. But next week, in the next few weeks, we're going to see Okada, because Okada is going to be a part of the Continental Classic tournament, and he's going to be involved in that tournament and have matches in that tournament where he's also defending that Continental Championship. So again, looking forward to that. Daniel Garcia is a part of the Continental Classic tournament as well. Darby Allin, Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, the Beast Mortos, Ricochet, Brody King are also a part of the Continental Classic tournament. Mark Briscoe as well will also be a part of the tournament once again, just like Brody King is going to be a part of the tournament. So the Continental Classic is going to be definitely intriguing to see what happens, man. It's going to be, a hell of a night, great past, couple weeks leading up to the finals, which I believe will take place at World's End in December 28th, I think, is when World's End pay-per-view for AEW is going to take place. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. But like I said, man, to me, Full Gear this year was AEW's most confusing pay-per-view. There was no story, lack of build, and the main event had a lot of angles into it, a lot of questions that the fans want answers to, because we don't know what's next for Jon Moxley or Orange Cassidy. We've seen Adam Page, we see Christian Cage, we see Jay White, all a part of this, match after the match. And then we also see Darby Allin. Darby Allin was in the car. He wrecked the Dodge Ram that the Death Riders have been showing up in the arena in the past couple of weeks. So who's going to be the next person to challenge Jon Moxley? How is this going to really portray itself out? Is it going to be Adam Page? Is it going to be Christian Cage? Is it going to be Jay White? Is it going to be Darby Allin? There's a lot of angles into this, and I think at the end of it was just confusing as all hell, man, because it was like, what the hell is going on here? There's no story now. There's nothing to really sink your teeth into with this storyline, and I feel like if things don't change here very quickly with the storyline with Jon Moxley, it's not going to work, man. And I mentioned this same thing, with Kenny Omega and the Bucks. They need to be on Dynamite, man. Unfortunately, and the reason why I'm saying that is because AEW has a really hard time building younger talent. You look at someone like Ricky Starks, where Ricky Starks ended up showing up, I believe it was the same night, for a GCW event. And he talks about, his time a little bit in AEW, and he thought people were going to forget about him. You know what I mean? And he got a lot of praise showing up at a GCW event. Ricky Starks, he's just sitting at home, man. Talent being wasted because there's nothing that, AEW wants to do with Ricky Starks, and it's a damn shame. And I still believe when it's time, Ricky Starks is gone, man. He's not staying with AEW. He's going to be gone. Probably to WWE or working on the indies. He's gone. If WWE comes up with a contract to offer Ricky Starks, Ricky's gone. Ricky is absolutely gone, man. Yeah, I just don't think that he's going to finish out his career in AEW. I just don't see it. But Full Gear, like I said, man, it wasn't bad. I know a lot of people were like, oh, it was the worst event of AEW's history. I'm not going to sit here and say that. I mean, the matches on there were absolute bangers. Like I said, Monet, Statlander, they tore the house down. Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay was amazing. I mean, Ospreay having a bad match is like seeing Haley's Comet, man. That guy can have a matchup with a loaf of bread in the middle of the ring and it'd be a 5-star match. I mean, Ospreay, he's an incredible talent, man. I tell everybody all the time, man, you want to watch a good match, you look up Will Ospreay. Ospreay is incredible. I thought the ring gear was awesome. It was kind of paying homage to the Punisher. It was great. And you know what? And again, I'm going to say this too, man. Kyle Fletcher, he might be the next big thing for AEW. I think Fletcher really held his own against Ospreay. Fletcher is a dog, man. Fletcher is a beast. And, he's, I think it was Tony Schiavone or Excalibur said the guy's only 25 years old. He's so young in the business, man. He's not even hit his prime yet. And Fletcher, man, what he did with Will Ospreay was absolutely incredible. I mean, those guys beat the shit out of one another, and they kept on going. The other match that might have disappointed me a little bit with a lack of build was Takeshita versus Ricochet. Takeshita, by the way, I'm a huge fan of Takeshita. I think Takeshita is severely underrated. He reminds me a lot of Masahiro Chono. If you don't know who that is, obviously a big name over in New Japan. He also wrestled under the NWO faction. He also wrestled for WCW. Masahiro Chono was a big, big deal back in the day, back in the the 80s and 90s. So he has a lot of similarities to Masahiro Chono. And I think Takeshita, him working with Don Callis, and Don Callis kind of be the vocal piece, if you will, of Takeshita, I think is perfect. I mean, Takeshita can come in as a babyface. I like him as a heel, to be honest with you. Takeshita, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for many, many years for AEW. And, the guy's incredible. The guy can wrestle his ass off. And he's an incredible talent, man. He's had some really good matches. The match with Ricochet was decent. I mean, even though the lack of build. The match he had with Will Ospreay was incredible. Absolutely incredible, man. And, again, it's the same thing I said about Will Ospreay. You look at a Takeshita match, man. Takeshita, again, could have a 5-star match with a loaf of bread in the middle of the ring. The guy is very talented. He knows the in and outs of the ring. He's still very young, and to me, very young in the business. And he has a lot of time to develop, man. I feel like Takeshita as well as Kyle Fletcher have not reached their prime yet, man. And ironically, both these guys work with Don Callis. So Don Callis is doing a great job with guys like Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher, man, because Fletcher and Ospreay tore the house down. Takeshita did a hell of a job against Ricochet. And that's why I said, man, it's really hard to say that Full Gear was a terrible show, because I'm telling you, man, those matches were incredible. Fletcher, Ospreay, Takeshita, Ricochet, Monet, Statlander was incredible. Moxley and Orange Cassidy was good. Daniel Garcia and Jack Perry, it was all right. It wasn't the greatest, but there was like 3 or 4 matches on that card, man, were actually not that bad. It's unfortunate because of lack of story and the lack of build. If we had storyline for these matches and build up for these matches, it would make the Full Gear way better than what it came out to be. But I can't sit here and say as a fan that it was the worst pay-per-view in AEW's history. There was a lot of confusement and a lot of questions that the fans want answers to, especially when it pertained to what happened after the main event. With, the likes of Adam Page and Jay White, Christian Cage, and Darby Allin kind of being all involved with this Death Rider situation. So obviously there were some fans out there, and myself included, that kind of want some answers to some of these questions because no one knows where the hell this is going as far as the direction of this so-called storyline with Jon Moxley. I think some people, including myself, are getting to the point where I feel like this whole storyline with Moxley has kind of ran its course. It's not really intriguing as much as it was when they first started doing this, when Moxley, told Tony Schiavone that this is no longer their company, and I feel like since then it's really gone nowhere. From the Death Riders attacking the Dark Order, the Top Flight, Daniel Garcia, now it's Orange Cassidy, now it's is it going to be Adam Page, Jay White, Christian Cage, or Darby Allin? I mean, literally nobody knows really what the hell's going on. And my prediction is I still believe that the Young Bucks will come back here soon and take on Moxley and the Death Riders. I don't know if Kenny Omega factors into that at all. I know Kenny Omega has a matchup at Wrestle Dynasty against Gabe Kidd. And the matchup should be decent. I believe Gabe Kidd is a part of the Bullet Club faction. I'm not really familiar with Gabe Kidd's work over in New Japan. But that's Kenny Omega's matchup. The first match he's had back since being injured with diverticulitis. He's not making his first match return back to Dynamite. He instead is returning to New Japan to take on Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty, which would be a really good show over in Japan. But I don't know, man. I don't know how it's going to factor in. And again, we might see the Young Bucks here relatively soon. I mean, we've seen Jack Perry. Now Okada's coming back. He's also been off the scene since the Young Bucks have been off the scene. So now we see Okada come back and be a part of the Continental Classic tournament. And who knows? We can see also Matt and Nick Jackson return, leading up to a matchup possibly with them and Jon Moxley or something like that, leading up to World's End. And hopefully they can have proper build and proper storyline leading up to next pay-per-view for AEW, which will be at World's End, I believe, December 28th this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But like I said, man, at the end of the day, there's really nothing I can really say that bad about Full Gear. I think the matches, 3 or 4 matches were really good on the card. It just, I think the one bad thing I would say, or 2 bad things, is a lackadaisical build and storyline leading up to these matches, man. There was no storyline, no build, no hype, no excitement, no emotion leading up to these matches at Full Gear, in my honest opinion. And I feel like that kind of took away a lot of the excitement and hype around Full Gear this year. And, like I said, in the main event, a lot of confusing stuff going on in the main event after the match took place between Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley. And to me, this year's Full Gear, I would have to say this was AEW's most confusing pay-per-view of all time. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Full Gear. I hope you guys are out there staying safe, be careful, and remember,